Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sexy Business Podcast. As always, I am Lewd Neko, and joining me is Spooky Dangerous.
That's me.
And this time we have another exciting interview episode with one of the devs for the game Lord Goblin, Ben.
Hello, or just Ben. Yeah, whatever you like.
Yeah, I think Ben from here on out is going to be much easier.
Probably
for
easier.
us.
Yeah. Otherwise, we've all got to stutter.
Exactly. So for a bit of context for Ben, because we hadn't revealed this to you before, but Neko and I did like a top 5 games from last year, and Lord Goblin was actually one that I put in my top 5 because I had played the early demo and I was actually really excited to see what was going to happen with the full release. And now, at the time of recording, it's been out for exactly 24 hours almost on Steam. What's that been like?
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe 36 hours, I think. Insane is the answer, right? Just working like every minute I have and still behind everything. We've been like, of course, we tested it like heaps beforehand, but then first thing happens, people find bugs. So we've had to, we've immediately got on patching everything, and like suddenly there's a whole bunch of people playing the game that have things to say about it and want to talk to me, and so I've been very busy.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a few of those myself where I've uploaded an update to something and people are like, yes, it's completely broken. None of the new content is accessible. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, fortunately, these were just like, they've been pretty minor bugs, but even so, it's like, we can't let that lie. We have to get in there and fix it right away. So, I don't know. It's stressful. You take it really seriously.
Exactly. And before we dig too deep, I do want to out you as a fellow Australian. I won't give you full address. But do you also suffer from the same handicap that I do, where it feels like everything happens between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m.?
Yeah. So fortunately, we've worked with a publisher on this one. So what they did was they got me to launch it right before I went to bed.
Yeah.
And so the initial like first 8 hours I slept through for release, and they handled it for me.
And then just playing catch up from there.
Yeah, because I do sleep through pretty much the rest of the world's activity. Well, the rest of the English-speaking world's activity.
Yeah, I schedule everything to go live at 4 a.m., which I think is like best time zones for my audience. But then there's a whole bunch of stuff that you just can't schedule in advance. So I'm like, okay, here it is at 11 a.m., which is the amount of time it takes for me to get all the stuff from the artist that worked while I was asleep and complete the update. Here you go.
Yeah. Sometimes I just, like, for a lot of stuff, I've just given up on trying to time it. It comes out when it comes out.
Exactly. All right. Well, do you want to give us sort of the hot pitch for Lord Goblin? Give us the log line.
Sure. I have it written down somewhere. Where's my description of it? Is I am so scatterbrained right now.
I feel that.
Yeah. No, well, I can't find it. But Lord Goblin is a game about, well, you play as a goblin who is kept as a slave by the sinister witch queen Azea, and until she tries a spell that goes wrong, and suddenly she has to work for you, and you are lord of some small land known as Greenwood, and you have to run a castle and train the staff, the maids, and try to deal with all the things that come up when a goblin that nobody respects and nobody takes seriously is suddenly in charge. Obviously it's an adult game. There's the romancing of Hosea and of the maids, and that's also like tied into the decision making as these characters give you their opinions on all the decisions you have to make and that kind of thing, and it can affect your relationships with them. It's also a pretty chill, sort of mellow game by design. It's sort of meant to be like a a nice, pleasant place to hang out kind of thing. And it's a comedy, and I'm quite proud of the story. There's not the story is only sort of about a third of the way into the game at the moment, and I've been deliberately holding back large amounts of it until we have the new features to roll in.
Yeah.
And I want to when I release the story segments, I really want them to be. We'll probably do a lot of that in a fast sort of like progression. Like we'll just start putting out all the story parts at once because that's going to progress a lot, and it's mostly written already. So yeah, it's just a matter of completing certain necessary gameplay features and art elements and that kind of thing.
That sounds promising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I only played like a small amount of it, but even just sort of getting a feel for the kind of management, like tasks and stats and things that you have to balance was really exciting. I'm a huge fan of management games. We actually named this podcast kind of accidentally after Max Gentleman's Sexy Business, which
Oh
is
yeah,
like a
yeah.
tycoon sexy game.
Mhm.
And I was just like, oh, this is such a good idea for a genre. Because I feel like we were kind of in a point where like there was like a lot of art, like NSFW RPGs and like side scrollers and like more like action based games, or like visual novels where like there's like no action and you're just reading. And I think the management game is a really nice way of balancing that, where you can still have like the visual novel segments, but then you have a little bit of like strategy and like I really like the choice making of like the random events that can happen, having to think about things like your like reputation, getting to interact with all of the cute maids, of course. It was a lot of fun, even for being pretty like relatively early on in development.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah. Well, I mean, like one of the great things about it is like obviously we do have the visual novel elements because there's definitely a story here and there are character scenes and everything, and visual novel approach is the best way to do that. But also it was really fun to like create this integrated idea where we can just like zoom in on a room and then suddenly we're in a visual novel where we sort of zoom into the characters, but then we pull out and we're in the castle cross section, and you're managing the upgrading the castle or making decisions, that kind of thing. And yeah, I did it largely because like it's a lot of fun to design actual gameplay and interact with people in coming up with like how can we make this more interesting. Like one of the Steam players made a great suggestion just this morning. Someone who's just like discovered it through Steam and come onto the Discord and suggested we've got this ability where you can buy new outfits for the characters, and that was mostly just for like here's some sexy new outfits you can spend your resources on. But they suggested also like that could have statistic boosts for different jobs. Like if you put them in this kind of outfit, they're better at this kind of job. And I thought that's a great idea. I'm really glad we're definitely gonna try to implement that.
Dress for the job you have, not the job you want.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to work on this kind of thing. It's a I I don't think I'd want to make just a straight, completely traditional VN, because I've got to want to get up in the morning and really be passionate about the job.
Yeah. When it comes to like inspirations for the game, and this can be anything from like characters to sexy stuff to like even just like the gameplay, did you have any other like games or like hentai or like maybe things you had seen in the past that were like jumping off points?
Yeah. There were a bunch of things actually. Like the decision system you mentioned was definitely inspired by like Paradox games, like Crusader Kings, that kind of thing, where you get like characters on a screen and you get a decision and you have some stats that it affects, and having a top bar along the top that tells you the statistics while you're doing things. That's also from something like Crusader Kings, or Stellaris, Paradox management sim games. But there's a really old hentai game called Maid Story, or The Maid Story, which has gameplay a little bit like what we've done in terms of the interactions with the training, like managing tasks and that kind of thing. So that was a big inspiration. I'd been playing around with sort of like cross-section parallaxing effects, which that's the sort of zooming effect you can make 2D look like 3D. And so for a while I'd had it in my head that I wanted to do something with that and with animated live 2D characters as we have in the game. So yeah, what else? There's so much. I wrote a devlog where I had like 10 different posts on all the different things that had inspired the game, and I think it all got wiped out when we got banned on a false report by Patreon.
A classic.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a troll reported us for just like a made up thing, and then the reviewer just immediately banned us without investigating it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's spotted in some way.
Yeah, we weren't in violation of the rules, but yeah, we got kicked off anyway.
So what brought you to developing adult games like this one?
Well, I used to make text games for fun, just because I always wanted to do some writing, and that was a fun way to do it. And it was really just kind of like, I don't know, it seemed like a low bar to clear, I guess. Like it was an easy thing, and I developed a bit of an audience making those. So I thought, oh yeah, this is fun. And eventually, when I was like between jobs, I thought, well, I probably better stop doing this because it's quite time consuming at the moment, or I could just set up a Patreon and see if it works. And so I did that and tried to get some more work, and that sort of set my trajectory.
Weirdly similar origin story. There's nothing like the doll that makes you want to jerk your shit and make porn.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and I don't know. I just finished. I'd finished like one thing. I didn't have anything going on in my life at the time, and I really didn't want to be on the doll. So but no, it was really like having people support my creative work was just like a complete transformation for me. So I haven't wanted to quit since then.
Now, when it comes to the protagonist of this game, which is sort of like one of the like central elements of obviously both the gameplay as well as the like sexy stuff and the story stuff, what made you choose that you wanted this to be like Lord Goblin instead of just being, any other sort of protagonist?
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky one because I know a lot of people come to this thinking it's going to be like a particular thing, I don't know, like whole point of it is that he's ugly or something, but it's not really true. We kind of went with quite a handsome little goblin. The idea was mostly just like it was all about the key idea was Azia herself was a character concept that I had in my head for a long time, and he really works best with the most like downtrodden and sort of little guy protagonist, where she's just completely like walking all over him and kicking him around for all their life together, and then the scale get turned around. So
trying to get for like a big power exchange kind of fantasy.
Exactly. Yeah. So so that was why it just sort of he needed to be the lowest of the low, and a goblin seemed perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I think when a lot of people see like goblins in like hentai-ish games, like the immediate assumption is like NTR or like non-con or like kind of like more like darker kinks. So I was like really surprised the introduction that like even after he's sort of been given like power and like there's the part where like when they initially have to close the portal and they're like you literally have to do this otherwise like terrible things will happen. Like he's not like super aggressive about it or like too demeaning or anything like that. If anything, it's like the girls who have a lot of that internalized feelings of like, shame and lust at the same time, where they're the ones saying like, oh my gosh, how could I be attracted to this? Or how could I be doing this? So that was like a really interesting part of the sort of character dynamics they have.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I like to explore a character story like that. So yeah, it's the idea of like consent and legitimacy. This I probably sounds a bit kind of overly conceited for the type of game it is, but there's a theme that I'm developing here. It's like the idea of like the consent of the governed and the legitimacy of a ruler also comes into like it parallels relationships and that kind of thing. So it's I don't want to give spoilers, but
Is this
it's all
like
about
a
like
Barbie quote from Toy Story where it's like power comes from the consent of the governed, not from threat of force?
yeah. I think that's where it originates.
That's the
Yeah.
new tagline.
Bro,
Yeah.
spitting bars for real with a Toy Story quote.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I was trying to flesh out there, and it's yeah, he's an unconventional sort of leader, but that's the point, and it gives us a great like story arc, a progression, because a romance is way more fun when it opposites attracting, and particularly like Lord Goblin and Azea they have a great like opposites attract sort of dynamic.
Yeah, I guess speaking of, that would be a good time to sort of talk about the harem members or the girls that you get to interact with. So on top of Isaiah, you have three other maids that sort of each have their own personality type and their little quirks and secrets. Tell us a little bit about what it was like creating those three other girls.
Yeah, that they were fun because I started out with the idea that they were probably like it's sort of like a traditional fantasy adventure party, except that they're as I was playing around with it, I kind of found like, well, some of the stuff I doesn't interest me, and this might be a bit more interesting that way. So you have Beth, the religious girl, kind of the cleric, who actually I think is like, if you were thinking of it in Dungeons and Dragons terms, she's probably like level 1 and has really poor wisdom, but really high charisma. So she's a bit useless, but the other two still like her a lot. And then Cleona, the Scottish barbarian girl, not your fantasy Scotland, and Delia, the fantasy French alchemist, and but my idea with them was they really don't know what they're doing. They're just starting out, and they end up choosing to stay to work at the castle because they are they need to to keep this demonic portal closed, which is I think I didn't explain in the intro, but it's all in the prologue of the game. You'll get it.
Yeah, and the portal is kind of the main impetus for how the adult content happens. From kind of playing it through, generally, more of what you experience is more management sim stuff, and then all the adult content is kind of kept in one place, unless if you're from memory specifically interacting with them for the sexy scene. Is that right?
Well, so yeah, that's the kind of like the primary stuff at first. And then as your relationships develop, you get more and more romance sort of scenes, and you see this sort of like, the romance develop between the characters, and you eventually unlock different sex scenes and that kind of thing, and different character scenes
Okay.
that are so there's a lot more to see as you progress the relationships, basically. There's also this portal thing where they have to do some fooling around, or else demons are gonna spill through from the hell of lust, the circle of lust.
Yeah, I think it gives a good pacing to the game, because sometimes we'll come and play stuff to review for the podcast, right? And we go, okay, we really only have a couple of hours to play the game, and then we'll be like, okay, I'm an hour in and I haven't even seen any titties yet. What's going on? Did I do something wrong? With this, it has a nice pacing because you get a lot of the like low stakes scenes where the plot is like, look, this kind of has to happen, but you don't necessarily need to have fallen in love with this person yet. But also, you are rewarded more the time you invest in the different characters with the more relationship stuff that you get. Which is kind of cool because it means that you're also choosing your path, but you're also not denying yourself something by focusing on a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's not a choose one character kind of thing. It's like it's expected you'll get to all of them eventually.
Yeah. Well, they've all got to get good at doing the washing first.
Yep. Because you can't have a stinky lord.
That's right. Don't I know?
I will also say, one thing I really enjoyed was the voice acting. I was really impressed to see that in a game this early on in development. That's not something you see all the time. Usually voice acting is something that's like added posthumously or kind of like very close to like the game's full release. And it really, like, especially during the introduction, I mean, Isaiah's voice actor really, like, I don't know how to put this other than she put her whole pussy into it. Like, she was like really like embodying the character, because I feel like with these sorts of tropey characters where they're kind of funny, they're kind of sexy, you have to like be 100% into it, otherwise it'll come off as like, otherwise it just comes off as like not funny or not entertaining, or like you can't attach to it. This is something we talked about when we reviewed Honey Pop, is that like all the characters in that game are ridiculous stereotypes, but like the voice acting is kind of what like brings it all together and makes it interesting.
Yeah. Fortunately, I've got some great voice actors. I know quite a few voice actors from way back, like when I was working on earlier games that I've developed. So I've always kind of, well, for a long time I've had like voice acting in various projects. So I have a fair amount of experience with it, and so I knew I wanted to do it for this. And with Isaiah, we developed the voice together, like talking with the actress Pixie Willow. She really had a lot of ideas. Oh, in which we try to use authentic, more or less, accents as well. So like all the British accents are being played by British voice actresses. Delia's actress is French. So so there's a sense of authenticity there, and I also try to like really make sure that they have a lot of information about the characters, who they are, and what the scenes are for, and what the characters are going through, and that kind of thing. And I try to give them interesting dialogue to say, so they're not just saying like, "Yes, go that way," or you try and put a lot of personality into it, which is something I've learned over the time working with voice actors. You got to actually write good dialogue for them. But that's been great, and I think they've done a phenomenal job.
So now that you've successfully launched under Steam, and by successfully, I'm assuming you've made millions of dollars.
Millions.
What kind of secrets about the future can you leak for us? Have you got any cool stuff coming up that you can maybe spoil a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I'll. How much can I spoil? Well, one
Just
big
don't read out
feature.
your whole home address, and we should be fine.
Yeah. Sure. One big feature we've got, which I've teased a little, is that pretty soon we're going to be introducing a system where the Queen of the Realm, Queen Fina, makes occasional visits to the castle, and yes, the legendarily beautiful queen will arrive and come for visits if you have enough wine to tempt her.
Amazing.
And she doesn't think much of goblins, but she does start to get a little fascinated with this exotic culture, and start appropriating things and starting fashions amongst the nobles. So yeah, and you'll have to kind of entertain her, get the maids to properly, cook for her and that kind of thing. And she may well get more and more interested in Lord Goblin over the time.
Hey, yo.
Ooh.
King Goblin sequel?
Well,
2026?
there's already a king. She is married, but
Aw.
No. King Goblin's the NTR sequel. Where you,
Yeah,
The
right.
you play the
DLC.
bull. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, we've actually got that character animated already.
Hell
And
yeah. Has that been
yeah,
has that been leaked anywhere? Has it been teased yet?
yeah, for the subscribed
Nice.
higher tier patrons, they've
See,
seen
you
that.
heard it here, folks. If you spend the big bucks, you get the big secrets first.
Yeah. But hopefully we'll have that sort of relatively soon.
That's exciting.
And we've got a couple more like animated sex scenes that are mostly ready to go. So we've got, things coming up soon. And it's my hope we'll soon have the Beth romance arc done.
Hell, love that.
Yeah, and the story stuff is coming soon too. We've got a lot of one big thing that there's two big features that I really love that we're working on at the moment. They just take a lot of work. One of them is wardrobe stuff. I mentioned that earlier when we were talking.
Yay.
And so once we implement that properly, once we've got all the characters properly animated and everything and all the outfits in, you'll be able to like decide what the characters wear and you'll be able to buy new costumes. That's really exciting.
We love outfits.
Yeah, and we've had those available for subscribers to vote on. So they've picked outfits through the poll. And the other thing is the bathing, which is inspired by the start of Coming to America, pretty much, where you have an attended bath. If you fix up the bathroom, you can pick a maid to clean you, and we'll have like different combinations available. We're working on a really complicated animated scene where we can swap out different characters and things. So
nice.
Yeah. But we've got the art for that. Yeah.
Are you ready for the big hard question?
Oh yeah. The
Gun
tough
to your
question.
head,
Bring it on.
You have to select a waifu right now. Who do you go?
So yeah, my big problem is that I don't like to play favorites, and when one is working better than others, I always think like, I've got to work on the others then and bring them.
Same problem.
Up. Yeah, but I mean, I guess the obvious answer is probably Isaiah, because that relationship between her and Lord Goblin, I love that. And there's a reason she's on the poster,
right? I think the other characters get more time later on, but because she's so core to the story, she needs that spotlight early on. Yeah.
But I also like catch me on a different day, and I might say Beth. Because I love any character, and Isaiah and Beth are both true for this, who will constantly lie in really obvious ways to cover up what they're thinking.
Hell yeah.
Just like really comically try to badly conceal what they're really feeling. That's something that they're both big on. So yeah, they're a lot of fun, but I love the other characters too, and we've got a lot of their stories developed, and the art for all of them. There's heaps of stuff that we've got done that I would love to be showing off or putting in the game, but it's got to be the right
The right
time.
time, exactly. All right.
Yeah.
Now, there is no better right time than right now because Lord Goblin has just come out on Steam, but where else can we find Lord Goblin and where can we find you to get updates on the game?
Okay, well, the best place to find me is on our Discord. That's the link is in the demo version. It's in the you can find our Discord in the game. That's usually where I am, but I'm also what am I on Blue Sky?
BB Ben, something like that.
Yeah. Hold on, it's BBB or BB Ben Games Blue Sky, etc. So that's an okay place to get me. And what was the other question? Where can we find Lord Goblin? We're on. Yeah. Hold on, I'll give you the address. Bring it up right now.
Again,
subscribe. Yes, subscribestar.adult/bigbrassband.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
on Steam.
and
I know it's already on itch.io. That's where I played it. Do you have it on any other platform?
Yeah, and I also with the itch version, I will soon be probably updating that to the current Steam version and making the Steam version available for sale on itch.
Hell yeah.
And I'll probably put the demo on there too, just so like the demo's a little bit shorter than the sort of the earlier alpha build, but it's a lot more tight. It's a lot more stable and and looks better and everything. So yeah.
No, that sounds good.
They tell us not to put demos on Steam. So apparently it's bad for sale. But if you really want to play the demo, you can find it on itch. Just look for Lord Goblin.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's been Ben. Thanks for coming on to the show. It is always cool to, first of all, see a fellow Australian. It feels like we don't exist when it comes to the greatest state of the world until you hear us talk and you realize we don't have an American accent. I think you're our second or third Australian on the show, actually, so maybe I have a hidden skill for detecting homies.
Nice.
It is cool to hear about how Lord Goblin's going, because like I said, I picked it earlier on because I see the promise in it. I'm excited to see how it all pans out. So you best be guessing I'm going to be following it closely for the future. And if you, loyal viewer at home, also would like to see what's been Goblin D's nuts, then you should be going and checking out Lord Goblin on Steam. And look, just get in the game for yourself. And if you're enjoying silly interviews like this where I get to make silly jokes while our guest earnestly tells us important things about their life, then hit the subscribe button, follow on the channel. We have a lot of cool content like this, and your button clicks will help us be able to get on more cool guests like Ben so that we can talk about all cool things in the sexy business. So stick around, and next week we're going to have another cool interview for you as well that you're not going to want to miss.
Thanks for having me.
Hell yeah.
Bye.